Commander Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the thick glass window of the space station. Far below, Earth looked peaceful. The blue and green planet turned slowly, with white clouds drifting across the oceans. Elena had seen this view 1,000 times, but today felt different. Today, everything would change. "Commander, we have movement at the edge of the solar system," Lieutenant Torres called from his station. His voice was tight with fear. Elena walked back to the control center of the orbital station Cerberus. The screen showed what they had all been dreading. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They appeared as bright dots against the black of space, but Elena knew they were each the size of cities. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony. They had sent messages to Earth 3 days ago. The messages were simple: surrender or be destroyed. Earth's leaders had voted. The answer was no. Elena looked at the tactical display. Earth's entire fleet was moving to meet the alien ships. Every nation had sent their best vessels. The Americans brought their new destroyers. The Europeans sent their fast cruisers. China, Russia, India, Brazil, everyone contributed what they could. "How many ships do we have?" Elena asked. 237 combat vessels, Torres replied, plus about 400 fighters. Elena nodded. It sounded impressive until you looked at the alien fleet. Their ships gleamed like crystal in the starlight. Each one was smooth and graceful, as if grown rather than built. Intelligence reports said these ships could destroy planets. "Captain Chen is leading the first fighter wing," Torres added. Elena smiled for the first time in days. Sarah Chen was the best pilot humanity had ever produced. If anyone could make a difference today, it would be her. Chen had volunteered to lead the most dangerous mission, getting close enough to the alien ships to find their weak points. The communication system crackled. "Cerberus Control, this is Eagle Leader. We are beginning our approach." "Copy that, Eagle Leader. Good hunting." Elena watched the tactical screen as dozens of small blue dots representing Earth's fighters moved toward the massive red shapes of the alien fleet. The fighters looked like insects flying toward giants. The aliens had sent their own fighters to meet them. These ships moved differently than anything humans had ever seen. They flowed through space like fish swimming through water. Intelligence called the alien pilots Kethvar. They were supposedly bred for war, with reflexes faster than any human. The first contact happened at the edge of Mars' orbit. Elena held her breath as the two groups of fighters met. At first, the human pilots held their own. They used tactics the aliens had never seen before. Instead of flying in neat formations, they scattered and attacked from all directions. "Direct hit on alien fighter," Torres shouted. "Chen got one." The bridge crew cheered, but Elena stayed focused on the screen. The celebration was too early. She could see more alien ships moving toward the battle. The human fighters were clever. They worked in pairs, with one pilot drawing alien fire while the other attacked from behind. They used the debris from destroyed ships as cover. Some pilots even rammed their fighters into alien vessels when their weapons ran out. For 20 minutes, it looked like Earth might have a chance. The human pilots destroyed dozens of alien fighters. Their unconventional tactics confused the enemy formations. Elena began to hope that maybe, just maybe, they could win this. Then everything changed. The alien heavy destroyers moved forward. These ships were different from the fighters. They were massive, dark shapes that seemed to bend space around them. When they fired, their weapons didn't look like lasers or missiles. They looked like tears in reality itself. Elena watched in horror as an entire squadron of human fighters simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where brave pilots had been seconds before. "What happened to them?" Torres asked, his voice shaking. Elena had no answer. The alien weapons were beyond anything humanity understood. They didn't just destroy ships, they erased them from existence. More human fighters died in the next few minutes than in the previous hour of battle. The alien destroyers moved through Earth's fleet like wolves among sheep. Even the largest human battleships couldn't withstand their strange weapons. "Eagle Leader to Cerberus Control," came Chen's voice over the radio. Her fighter was damaged. Elena could hear the strain in her voice. "We're taking heavy losses. Recommend immediate withdrawal of all civilian ships." Elena looked at the display. Half of the human fleet was already gone. The aliens weren't even using their full force yet. This wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter. The orbital stations were next. Elena's sister stations began exploding one by one. The alien weapons reached across impossible distances and crushed the massive structures like tin cans. Thousands of people died in seconds. "All stations begin immediate evacuation," Elena ordered. "Get everyone to the surface now." But she knew it was hopeless. The alien fleet had ground forces, too. Massive biomechanical creatures that could level entire cities. Even if some people escaped the stations, there would be nowhere safe on Earth. Elena watched the last group of human fighters streak toward the planet's surface. Their ships were burning, their formation broken. Chen's voice came over the radio one last time. "This is Eagle Leader. We gave it everything we had. Tell Earth we tried." The tactical display showed the human fighters falling toward Earth like burning stars. Elena felt something break inside her chest. These were the best pilots humanity had ever trained. If they couldn't win, no one could. Yet even as despair filled her heart, Elena noticed something strange in the alien communications her station was intercepting. The aliens weren't celebrating their victory. If anything, they sounded confused. Elena frowned as she listened to the translated alien chatter. They had won completely, destroyed Earth's military in less than an hour. So why didn't they sound happy about it? Outside the window, Earth still turned peacefully below. But Elena knew that peace was about to end forever. Elena gripped the railing of the command bridge as another shockwave hit Cerberus Station. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the twisted remains of Defense Platform Alpha spinning slowly in the darkness. Moments ago, it had been home to 3,000 people. Now it was just debris and scattered atmosphere. The alien heavy destroyers continued their methodical destruction of Earth's orbital defenses. Their weapons defied everything humanity knew about physics. Where human weapons exploded and burned, the alien beams simply made things stop existing. No flash, no heat, no debris. Ships and stations were there one moment and gone the next. "Cerberus Control, this is Eagle 7, came a desperate voice over the radio. "My wing is down to 3 ships. We can't penetrate their shields. Request immediate backup." Elena closed her eyes. There was no backup to send. Every fighter squadron was either destroyed or scattered. The massive human fleet that had looked so impressive an hour ago was now burning wreckage floating in space. "All fighters withdraw to the planet," Elena ordered into her headset. "Repeat, all fighters withdraw to Earth immediately." She hated giving that order. It meant admitting defeat, but keeping pilots in space was just sending them to die for nothing. Lieutenant Torres looked up from his console, his face pale. "Commander, the alien ground forces are deploying. We're seeing massive ships heading for the major cities." Elena turned to the main display. The alien landing craft were unlike anything in Earth's military databases. They moved like living things, pulsing and flowing as they descended through the atmosphere. Some were as large as skyscrapers. Others looked like giant insects with too many legs. The first landing happened in New York. Elena watched the feeds from news cameras as something that looked like a metallic mountain settled in Central Park. The ground cracked under its weight. Then panels opened along its sides and things came out. The alien ground troops were a mix of creatures that seemed part machine and part animal. Some walked on 2 legs like humans but were twice as tall. Others scuttled on multiple limbs carrying weapons that glowed with the same energy as their space-based destroyers. All of them moved with purpose toward the city. "Are we getting any resistance from ground forces?" Elena asked. Torres shook his head. "Some police and National Guard units are engaging, but their weapons aren't doing much damage. The aliens have some kind of energy shields." Elena felt the last of her hope drain away. Earth's orbital defenses were gone. The space fleet was destroyed. Now the ground forces were proving just as helpless against alien technology. She looked back at the tactical display showing the surviving human fighters. There were maybe 50 left out of 400. They were streaming down through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls glowing red from re-entry heat. "Commander Chen's fighter is among the survivors," Torres said, reading Elena's thoughts. At least Sarah was alive. That was something. But what could 50 fighters do against an invasion force this size? Elena watched the flight paths of the surviving fighters with growing confusion. She had expected them to head for military bases or try to regroup at secure locations. Instead, they were scattering in all directions. Some were landing near cities, others in forests and deserts. A few were heading for remote mountain areas. "What are they doing?" she muttered. Torres looked at the display and frowned. "It looks like they're just spreading out randomly. That doesn't make tactical sense." Elena had to agree. If the fighters were going to make a final stand, they should concentrate their forces. Scattering like this would just make them easier to hunt down one by one. Her radio crackled with a transmission from the surface. "Cerberus Control, this is Eagle Leader. We're implementing Protocol 7. Elena's blood went cold. Protocol 7 wasn't in any official manual. She had only heard whispers about it in pilot briefings. It was something the fighter pilots had developed on their own, without telling the high command. "Torres, pull up everything we have on Protocol 7, she ordered. "I'm not finding any official records, Commander. It's not in our database." Elena grabbed her personal communicator and tried to reach Admiral Morrison, the head of Earth Defense. If anyone would know about secret pilot protocols, it would be him. The call took several minutes to connect. When Morrison's face appeared on the screen, he looked like he had aged 10 years since morning. Behind him, Elena could see smoke rising from the Defense Ministry building. "Elena, good to see you're still alive," Morrison said. "How's Cerberus holding up?" "We're still operational, but barely. Admiral, I need to ask you about Protocol 7. Our surviving fighters are implementing it." Morrison's expression darkened. "I was hoping they wouldn't need to use that." "What is it? I can't find any records." Morrison was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. "Protocol 7 is what the pilots call going native. They abandon their fighters and disappear into the civilian population." Elena stared at the screen. "That's not a military protocol. That's just desertion." "No, it's not." Morrison shook his head. "I approved it 6 months ago when we first detected the alien fleet. The pilots requested permission to develop their own survival protocols for a total defeat scenario." "But why scatter? Why not regroup and keep fighting?" "Because regrouping makes them targets," Morrison explained. "Large military formations can be detected and destroyed. Individual pilots hiding among civilians are much harder to find." Elena felt confused and frustrated. "So they're just giving up? Hiding until the aliens leave?" Morrison's smile was grim. "You don't know our pilots very well, do you? They're not hiding to survive. They're hiding to prepare." Before Elena could ask what he meant, the communication link was cut. The Defense Ministry's transmitter had been destroyed. Elena turned back to the tactical display. The last of the human fighters had landed. Their signal beacons went dark one by one as the pilots abandoned their aircraft and melted into the population below. Outside the station's windows, more alien ships were arriving. The invasion was just beginning, and Earth's defenders had apparently vanished without a final battle. Elena felt hollow inside. She had watched humanity's best pilots fall from the sky in defeat. The few survivors were now hiding among civilians instead of fighting back. It seemed like the end of everything. But then she remembered Morrison's words. They weren't hiding to survive. They were hiding to prepare. Prepare for what? War Master Thexalon stood in the command chamber of his flagship, studying the holographic display that showed Earth floating below. 3 days had passed since the complete defeat of the human military. By all standards of the hegemony, the conquest should be entering its final phase. Yet something felt wrong. Thexalon's 4 eyes tracked across the tactical readouts. His species, the Kethvar, had been bred for warfare across countless generations. His ancestors had conquered 47 worlds for the hegemony. In every case, the pattern was identical. First came the initial military resistance. Brave but doomed defenders fought with primitive weapons and outdated tactics. This phase typically lasted hours to days. Second was the tactical retreat. Surviving military forces regrouped in fortified positions, trying to protect civilian populations. This phase lasted days to weeks. Third came the negotiation attempts. Military and political leaders sought terms of surrender to minimize civilian casualties. This phase lasted weeks to months. Finally came submission. The defeated species accepted hegemony rule in exchange for survival. This was permanent. Earth had skipped directly from Phase 1 to what appeared to be complete military collapse. No regrouping, no fortified positions, no negotiation attempts. The human fighters had simply scattered and vanished. "War Master," called Subcommander Crix from his monitoring station. "The human communications are becoming more difficult to track." Thexalon moved to the communications array. His ship's systems could intercept and decode most electromagnetic transmissions, but human radio chatter had changed dramatically since the orbital battle. Instead of military frequencies coordinating resistance, they were hearing civilian broadcasts, emergency services helping wounded, news reports about alien landings, normal people talking to their families. "Are they using coded messages?" Thexalon asked. "Unknown, War Master. If they are, the codes are unlike anything in our databases. Much of it appears to be genuine civilian communication." Thexalon frowned. Every conquered species tried to hide military communications at first, but they used recognizable patterns, mathematical codes, frequency hopping, burst transmissions. Humans seemed to be having normal conversations about normal things. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Thexalon's ground forces were reporting increasingly strange incidents. Human civilians were not behaving according to the psychological profiles. "Subcommander, show me the latest ground reports." A series of holographic displays appeared, each showing a different human city. The alien biomechanical units had deployed successfully and were establishing control zones around major population centers. But the humans weren't responding properly. In New York, a group of humans had gathered outside the alien perimeter. Instead of fleeing or cowering, they were standing quietly with signs written in various languages. The signs said things like, "Welcome to Earth," and "We hope you come in peace." The aliens had no protocols for this. In London, humans were leaving food and flowers near alien patrol routes. When alien scouts approached, the humans didn't run. They waved and tried to communicate using hand gestures. In Tokyo, children were drawing pictures of alien ships and leaving them where patrols could find them. "War Master, my troops don't know how to respond to this behavior," reported Ground Commander Vex through the communication system. "The humans show no fear and no hostility. But they also show no signs of submission." Thexalon studied the reports with growing confusion. Fear and hostility were normal responses that could be managed through appropriate shows of force. Submission was the desired end state, but this passive friendliness was not in any hegemony handbook. "Have they made any attempts to attack our positions?" Thexalon asked. "No, War Master. No organized attacks at all. But we are experiencing equipment failures." "What kind of failures?" "Minor ones. Communication arrays developing static." vehicle sensors giving false readings, food processing units producing unusual tastes. Nothing that threatens our operations, but the frequency is higher than expected. Thexalon made a note to investigate this further. Random equipment failures could indicate sabotage, but they could also indicate that human technology was somehow incompatible with hegemony systems. On Earth, Elena Vasquez was having similar thoughts, but from the opposite perspective. She had managed to evacuate from Cerberus Station before it was destroyed and was now hiding in an underground bunker beneath what used to be NORAD headquarters. The bunker's communication systems were picking up strange signals from around the planet. At first, Elena thought they were alien transmissions. Then she realized they were coming from human sources, but using methods she had never seen before. Someone in Australia was sending messages using shortwave radio with a technique that sounded like music. Someone in Africa was using reflected satellite signals to create patterns that only made sense if you knew where to look. Someone in South America was encoding information in civilian television broadcasts. Elena had been trying to figure out these communication methods for 2 days when Lieutenant Torres arrived with a captured alien device. "We found this near one of their patrol routes," Torres explained. "It looks like some kind of scanner or communication unit." Elena examined the device. It was clearly alien technology, smooth and crystalline like their ships. But it had been modified. Human components were attached to its surface with what looked like electrical tape and wire. "This is impossible," Elena said. "Human technology shouldn't be compatible with alien systems." "That's what I thought too," Torres agreed, "but someone made it work. The modifications look crude, but they're functional." Elena stared at the device as understanding slowly dawned on her. The scattered pilots weren't hiding. They were working. Somehow, they were learning to use alien technology and teaching others how to do the same. She thought about the equipment failures the aliens were probably experiencing. Maybe they weren't random. Maybe they were the result of interference from modified alien devices operated by humans who were still fighting, just in a way the aliens had never encountered. Elena turned on the bunker's radio systems and began scanning for more hidden communications. As she listened, she started to recognize patterns. The music-like signals from Australia weren't random. They were coordinates. The satellite reflections from Africa were timing signals. The television broadcasts from South America were technical instructions. All around the planet, humans were talking to each other using methods that sounded innocent to alien listeners, but carried crucial information to anyone who knew how to decode them. Elena realized with growing excitement that Protocol 7 wasn't about giving up. It was about going underground in the most literal sense. The fighter pilots hadn't disappeared. They had become something new, something the aliens couldn't understand or counter. She grabbed her microphone and began transmitting on a frequency she had seen in the hidden communications. "This is Eagle's Nest to any eagle still flying. Please respond." For a moment, there was only static. Then a familiar voice came through the speakers. "Eagle's Nest, this is Eagle Leader. Good to hear your voice. We've been waiting for you to find us." Elena's heart raced. Sarah Chen was alive and still fighting. "Eagle Leader? What is your status?" "Status is complicated," Chen replied. "We're not military anymore. We're something else. And we're about to give our alien friends a very unpleasant surprise." 3 months had passed since the Great Defeat, and War Master Thexalon was discovering that conquering a planet and controlling it were very different things. His morning briefing brought another series of problems that made no sense according to hegemony experience. Ground Commander Vex's holographic image flickered with interference as he delivered his report. "War Master, we've lost another supply convoy, the 3rd one this week." Thexalon leaned forward in his command chair. "Attacked by human military forces?" "No, sir. That's the problem. We never see any organized military. The convoys just break down. Vehicles stop working. Communication systems fail. Food supplies spoil. Equipment malfunctions. And the crews? They report seeing humans in the area but never attacking. Sometimes they offer help. Yesterday, a human female brought water to our troops when their purification system failed. But somehow our replacement equipment also failed within hours. Thexalon's 4 eyes narrowed. This was impossible. Conquered species either fought with organized resistance or accepted defeat. They didn't offer help while simultaneously sabotaging equipment. "Show me the pattern analysis," he ordered. A holographic map of Earth appeared, showing red marks where hegemony equipment had failed. The marks were everywhere. No pattern, no obvious strategy. Just a steady stream of small problems that was slowly crippling the occupation. "Sub-Commander Crix, what does intelligence say about this?" Crix's voice carried frustration. "War Master, we believe the humans are using their primitive technology to interfere with our systems, but we cannot detect how. Their methods are too crude for our sensors to recognize as threats." On the planet below, Captain Sarah Chen crouched in the ruins of a shopping mall outside Detroit. Around her, a dozen humans worked quietly with tools that would have looked like junk to most people. Car batteries, copper wire, radio parts, and pieces of captured alien equipment were spread across makeshift tables. "How's the signal booster coming?" Sarah asked a man who had been an engineer before the invasion. "Almost ready," he replied, attaching more wire to an alien communication device. "This should let us coordinate with the teams in Chicago and Cleveland." Sarah nodded and moved to where a woman was teaching a group of teenagers how to modify alien sensors. The woman had been a high school science teacher. Now she was one of Earth's most effective sabotage specialists. "Remember," the teacher was saying, "you don't want to break their equipment completely. You want to make it unreliable. A sensor that gives false readings is more useful to us than a sensor that doesn't work at all." One of the teenagers raised her hand. "Why don't we just blow everything up?" Sarah answered before the teacher could. "Because explosions can be tracked and predicted. Random failures look like accidents. The aliens can't defend against accidents." This was the heart of Protocol 7. The scattered pilots hadn't become traditional guerrilla fighters. They had become something new, teachers and coordinators for a resistance that didn't look like resistance. Instead of forming military units, they had joined civilian communities. Instead of stockpiling weapons, they were teaching ordinary people how to use alien technology against itself. Instead of attacking alien positions, they were making the occupation too expensive to maintain. Sarah's radio crackled with a coded message. 3 short bursts, 2 long, 1 short. It meant supply convoy approaching from the north. She turned to her team. "Positions, everyone. Remember, we're just civilians going about our business." The group scattered with practiced efficiency. Some continued working on their projects. Others began cleaning up the mall. A few pulled out books and started reading. By the time the alien patrol arrived, it looked like a group of humans had taken shelter in the abandoned building. The alien patrol consisted of 3 biomechanical units that moved like giant insects. They scanned the area with multiple sensors looking for threats. The sensors detected humans, but nothing that registered as dangerous. One of the patrol units approached Sarah. She looked up from her book with what she hoped looked like nervous curiosity. The alien spoke through a translation device. "Human, what are you doing here?" "Reading," Sarah replied honestly. She held up the book. It was a manual on electronics, but the alien's translator couldn't distinguish between different types of human literature. "This building is not designated for human habitation," the alien said. Sarah shrugged. "It's quiet. Good place to think." The alien scanned her with a handheld device. It detected no weapons, no communication equipment, no signs of military training. Of course, it also couldn't detect that the book she was reading contained instructions for disrupting alien sensor arrays, or that her reading glasses were actually a targeting system for coordinating sabotage operations. The patrol moved on after 10 minutes. As soon as they were gone, Sarah's team resumed their work. 2 hours later, the same patrol would find their sensors giving strange readings. Their communication system would start producing static. Their food would taste wrong. None of these problems would be severe enough to call for backup, but they would be annoying enough to reduce the patrol's effectiveness. Meanwhile, Elena Vasquez was coordinating similar operations from hidden bunkers around the world. Her communication network had grown from a few scattered pilots to thousands of civilian volunteers. They used everything from modified alien technology to smoke signals to coordinate their activities. The most remarkable thing about the resistance was that it included everyone. Former soldiers worked alongside teachers, engineers, and shopkeepers. Children learned sabotage techniques as easily as they learned math. Elderly people proved surprisingly good at appearing harmless while gathering intelligence. Elena received reports throughout the day that painted a picture of an occupation force slowly losing control. In Mumbai, a group of street vendors had figured out how to make alien water purification systems produce harmless but terrible-tasting water. In London, someone had programmed alien food processors to randomly change flavors, making meals unpredictable and unappetizing. In Sydney, alien communication arrays were experiencing interference that sounded like background noise but actually contained human messages. None of these activities were dramatic enough to trigger massive retaliation. They were just annoying enough to make the aliens' lives difficult. Elena looked at her global status board and smiled for the first time in months. The red marks showing successful sabotage operations covered the entire planet. Every alien base, every patrol route, every supply line was experiencing problems. War Master Thex Alan was reaching the same conclusion from his perspective, but with growing alarm. His morning briefing now included reports of equipment failures, supply shortages, and troop morale problems from every occupied territory on the planet. "War Master," Ground Commander Vex said, "my troops are requesting rotation back to the fleet. They say the constant equipment problems and strange human behavior are affecting their combat readiness." Thexalon studied the reports with mounting concern. In the hegemony's long history of conquest, no species had ever sustained this level of resistance after a decisive military defeat. Worse, the economic cost of maintaining the occupation was growing every day. "Sub-Commander Crix, what would it cost to replace all failed equipment and double our patrol strength?" Crix consulted his data systems. "War Master, the resource expenditure would exceed the projected value of this world by a factor of 12. That was the number Thexalon had been dreading. Earth was becoming the first planet in hegemony history that cost more to occupy than it was worth. He looked out at the blue world below and wondered if the humans somehow knew they were winning. Elena Vasquez stared at the captured alien officer sitting across the table in the underground bunker. The Kethvar warrior looked nothing like the terrifying creatures from the invasion broadcasts. Without its biomechanical armor, it seemed almost fragile, with large eyes that reminded Elena of a frightened animal. The capture had been a stroke of luck. The alien had been separated from its patrol during a dust storm in Nevada. Local resistance members found it unconscious and brought it to Elena's hidden base instead of killing it. "Your name," Elena said through the translation device they had built from captured alien technology. "Sub-Commander Rathke," the alien replied. Its voice was high and musical, nothing like the harsh mechanical sounds Elena had expected. "Why are you here? Why did you attack Earth?" The alien's large eyes showed confusion. "Attack? We did not attack. We conquered. There is difference." Elena leaned forward. "Explain the difference." "Attack means destruction for pleasure. Conquest means absorption into hegemony for mutual benefit. Your species receives protection and technology. Hegemony receives resources and new capabilities. What if we don't want to join your hegemony? The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Want is irrelevant. Hegemony includes 47 species. None wanted to join initially. All are grateful now. Elena felt a chill. What happened to the species that refused to be grateful? Refused? The alien seemed genuinely puzzled. No species has ever maintained refusal past the submission phase. Resistance ends when economic cost exceeds survival benefit. How long does that usually take? For most species, days or weeks. The longest resistance in hegemony history lasted 4 months and 3 days. Elena realized with shock that Earth's resistance had already lasted longer than any in the alien's experience. More importantly, the alien had revealed something crucial about the hegemony's structure. "Tell me about the 47 species in the hegemony," she said. Over the next hour, Elena learned that the hegemony wasn't the united empire it appeared to be. It was a collection of conquered species held together by economic agreements and mutual dependence. Each species contributed resources and received protection, but the system only worked if conquest costs remained predictable. Most importantly, Elena learned that several species were growing unhappy with the arrangement. The Kethvar themselves had been among the earlier conquests and were essentially slave soldiers for the more powerful hegemony members. What would happen if one world cost too much to conquer? Elena asked. Impossible, the alien replied, but its voice lacked confidence. Hegemony has never abandoned a conquest. Elena smiled. What would happen if it did? Theoretical question has no meaning. But Elena could see in the alien's eyes that it had meaning. If the hegemony abandoned Earth, other member species might start asking questions about their own arrangements. She activated her communication system and sent coded messages to resistance cells around the world. It was time for Phase 2 of Protocol 7. Captain Sarah Chen received Elena's message while hiding in the ruins of Detroit's automotive district. Around her, teams of humans were working on their most ambitious project yet, reverse-engineered alien fighters. The craft looked like combinations of human and alien technology, held together with determination and spare parts. They wouldn't win any beauty contests, but Elena's intelligence suggested they didn't need to be perfect. They just needed to exist. "Everyone ready?" Sarah asked her team. Nods came from around the makeshift hangar. These weren't professional pilots anymore. They were mechanics, engineers, teachers, and shop workers who had learned to fly captured alien technology through trial and error. Sarah climbed into her fighter and activated systems that 6 months ago she couldn't have imagined existed. The controls responded sluggishly compared to proper human aircraft, but they worked. All around the world, similar scenes were playing out. In hidden bases that had once been caves, abandoned buildings, and underground tunnels, humans were preparing to return to the sky. War Master Thex Alon was in the middle of a heated communication with the Hegemony Council when the alerts began sounding throughout his ship. "War Master, we have multiple launch signatures from the planet's surface," Subcommander Crix reported, his voice tight with disbelief. "Impossible. The humans have no functional aircraft." "Sir, I'm reading 57, no, 84. The numbers keep climbing. We now show over 200 small craft lifting from various locations around the planet." Thexalon abandoned his council meeting and rushed to the tactical display. The screen showed exactly what he had been told. Dozens of small craft were rising from Earth's surface, all heading in different directions. "Analysis," he ordered. "The craft appear to be hybrid constructions using both human and our technology. Performance is inferior to our fighters, but they are functional." Thexalon felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How did they acquire our technology?" "Unknown, War Master. Our equipment inventory shows normal loss rates." The truth was that humans had been collecting pieces of alien technology for months. Every equipment failure, every accident, every malfunction had resulted in components finding their way to resistance workshops. The aliens had been so focused on the big picture that they missed thousands of small thefts. Sarah Chen's voice came over Earth's communication networks, broadcasting on frequencies the aliens could hear. "Attention, hegemony forces. This is Captain Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We are resuming combat operations." Thexalon listened to the transmission with growing amazement. "Earth Defense Force? We destroyed their military months ago." "Sir, the humans appear to have rebuilt their air force using our own technology. The hybrid fighters weren't attacking alien positions. Instead, they were performing complex formation, flying around major cities, broadcasting messages to both human and alien populations." Elena's voice joined Sarah's on the communication networks. "Citizens of Earth and members of the hegemony, we want you to know that Earth's resistance continues. We have learned to use hegemony technology to build our own defense systems. We are no longer helpless." But the real message was being transmitted on frequencies only the hegemony could receive. Elena was broadcasting the economic data she had learned from the captured alien, showing exactly how much Earth's occupation was costing and how that cost was affecting the entire hegemony structure. Within hours, Thexalon began receiving communications from other hegemony species. Questions about resource allocation, complaints about increased military spending, demands for explanations about why one small world was consuming so much of the collective resources. Elena's final transmission was aimed directly at the hegemony leadership. "Members of the Hegemony Council, Earth offers you a choice. You can continue this expensive occupation of a world that will never submit, or you can negotiate a withdrawal that allows all species to benefit. We are prepared to share our hybrid technologies with any species interested in independence." Thexalon realized with growing horror that the humans had done something no conquered species had ever managed. They had turned their defeat into a weapon against the entire hegemony structure. The scattered pilots who had fallen from Earth's sky weren't the end of human resistance. They were the beginning of something the hegemony had never faced. A conquered species that refused to stay conquered and had learned to use the conqueror's own methods against them. As reports came in of hegemony member species asking questions about their own arrangements, Thexalon understood that Earth's resistance had become something much larger than one world's fight for freedom. Outside his ship's windows, the hybrid fighters continued their formations, a visible reminder that sometimes the best way to win a war was to lose it first, then refuse to accept that the loss was permanent. Elena watched the alien fleet from her bunker and allowed herself to hope. The fighters falling from the sky had not been humanity's end. They had been humanity's transformation into something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that turned every defeat into a new kind of victory.